I didn't beat Bloodlust. I usually do these videos giving tips on levels after I complete them, but, well, it's been 7 weeks and I don't have anything to show for it. I don't literally have nothing to show for it. As I'll get to, I've definitely improved and I technically got pretty close, but you'll have to take my word for it this time that I know what I'm talking about. This means Yatta remains my hardest demon, and I've decided to drop Bloodlust. I'll beat it someday, but definitely not now. To fill you in properly, the furthest I got was 91. Twice. I got better at Bloodlust than I've gotten at any level before. I would even say I got rather unlucky. I've over 40 deaths at the extension, only 2 of which got past the corridor part. My 291 deaths. But I also came into this level with a bad mindset and a flawed approach that I've reflected on and updated. To be honest, I'm almost certain that if I'd gotten another couple of weeks, I would have beaten this level. But that's exactly the problem. And I think it sums up this level perfectly. I just didn't have it in me to keep going. It's why I'm currently in the middle of a break from GD, and why I won't be continuing with Bloodlust when I get back. And I am returning soon, by the way. As a level, Bloodlust is formidable. But what you really have to understand about it is that at its core, Bloodlust is an endurance challenge. You'll need skill, but for most people, it's not about having the skill. It's about hanging in there for long enough. So seeing as Siki coincidentally picked up this level recently, and I'm sure countless other people will continue to as well, bear that in mind. In the time that I've been playing this game, I've been humbled many times. In fact, I've come to expect it as part of the process of beating any level. You go in thinking that you've got what it takes, but it's only after you accept that you don't that you can rise to overcome the challenge in front of you. Unfortunately, it's only now that I feel humbled by Bloodlust, when it's too late. So what am I going to do next? Not Bloodlust, of course, but I don't want to take a step back or to the side, which would be the sensible thing, seeing as my hardest demon hasn't even changed. As I said though, I've gotten a lot better. I got pretty much everything I could out of Bloodlust, except the completion. So, like the fool that I am, I'm moving up, and of all the levels I could have chosen, I'm doing Kinos. I know I'm an idiot, but I'm an idiot with something to prove. Clearly, I can't make promises anymore, but I'm going to give it everything I have. Just like Bloodlust, I'll be streaming all my progress on Twitch. Hopefully I see some of you there. See you on the other side. So here we are. Funny situation to be doing one of these without having completed the level, but I'm not too upset with it for now. It's definitely not for a lack of trying that I haven't beaten it. It's that I did not have the endurance. But yeah, it means that even though I haven't beaten the level, I do have an awful lot of information. To be fair, unlike the other completions though, seeing as I haven't done this yet, I guess this could be helpful for myself in the future. So there's that. And for that reason, I'm going to get out all the information I have. I guess I'll mention the first ship here, just because it's a ball ache. I think I'm not alone. People complain about this part a lot. It's just annoying and kind of unnecessary. But when you do it so many times, you do actually get quite consistent. My typical advice for parts like this is the same, is that obviously it's a mini ship, and a lot of people, especially mini ship, do very spammy clicks. They're not trying to do the same thing every time. They're just trying to, with skill, direct the ship through all the gaps. For me, I was trying to control the ship the same way every time, with the exact same click pattern, and that worked well for me, especially to get relatively consistent, so I'd recommend that. This wave, it's almost like pound for pound one of the hardest parts of the level, because it's, literally like 5 clicks or something ridiculous. Like it's a handful of clicks, and it's like 1 or 2 seconds, but it's quite difficult. Don't underestimate this, don't neglect this, don't see this as just something that you can practice when you play from zero. You should focus on this if it's giving you trouble. The mini ship here ends up being quite tricky then after that. A lot of the stuff in between isn't a big deal. This mini ship is really awkward though. It's actually just quite tricky, and importantly tricky in the way that you don't just solve it and then it's good. This part would be giving me trouble, every other day the entire time. Weirdest part is probably the very beginning, because it's hard to have this transition be consistent, not least because you can hit the pad going in differently every time. I found that didn't affect where you come out here too much. For me, what I found though was it was all about how because obviously you're holding here and you you hold upside down to come down into the portal. The most critical thing was, where do you come into this portal? So do you come in really high, really low, in the middle? And how does that affect the click pattern you have to do to make it through this gap? If you get into the portal very high up, you can actually completely let go, and the ship will fall pretty much directly in between these spikes. And so you just have to start clicking to go up. You actually can ignore this altogether. But aiming directly at the top half of the portal every time is going to be tricky, and you're probably going to die half the time just by messing that up. So I wouldn't recommend focusing on trying to replicate a specific transition. And if you don't go high up, if you go more towards the middle, then you need to do one click before reaching these spikes to get through, and then a second. And to be honest, you have enough time leading up to the portal and then after hitting it in this sort of space. You can tell, I'm really high up, I won't press. Or I'm right in the middle, I should do an extra press. And so be on your toes for that. The next thing is actually just like immediately this tight space here is probably what killed me the most in this part. What's tricky is that this really effectively is kind of a corridor. You can't just swoop up because of this sort of obstacle here. And so for me, again, I just had a consistent click pattern. After coming up and floating down here, I would specifically do 3 clicks to take me sort of up to the right height. And if you are able to focus on the gap and that helps you go directly in the middle, then that's good, and do that, but that's tricky. Figure out what works. I'm then going to go to Michigan, because a lot of the gameplay between that ship and here, the ball in particular, is just timings that you learn and you get consistent at. Michigan, easier than in Bloodbath, mostly. Triple spike we don't have to talk about. Straight fly we don't really have to talk about. The ball here we don't have to talk about. This is probably like significantly easier than the Bloodbath ball timings actually. If you are dying here somehow, it's hard to show here, but these objects move, the spikes move into place. Literally just watch the spikes move and then try and go in the gap. I mean, that sounds like it's not even real advice, but sometimes, for example, you might aim with these types of ball timings to like cross past the first spike a certain amount. Literally just look at the gap and try and go in the middle. Like, it's huge. The gaps are huge. The UFO is the UFO. It's easier. I actually got the entirety of Michigan, which, you know, includes the UFO, really quite consistent. At my peak, I was doing 60, 70, 80% sort of consistency there. So I wouldn't try to think too hard about this UFO to have a particular thing to look at. It's generally a bit better to jump earlier through the transition to the UFO. And then on the final click, you can click a bit earlier than you might expect. You don't have to click super late like you do on most of the timings. So don't do the hard timings and then die on this spike or by not clicking early enough, because that'd be silly. The first time I got to this transition to Evasium, I died on this orb, by the way, because in practice I was holding, like the second you come off of these pads, I would start holding. And when I held, the cube that hit this orb fell short and hit the spikes. So wait a moment till you're in the orb to hold. Evasium is the first really stupid part of the level. I found it eventually got moderately consistent, sometimes very consistent, but for a very short period of time, on average it was, for what it is, kind of annoyingly inconsistent. And when I say for what it is, you have the ship here, which is pretty rudimentary. It's not complicated. You fly through gaps. You can die here, especially at this little gap here, which is literally just do one click at the right weight and hope it works. You have this wave, which is pretty much all of Evasium. You have this bitter wave afterwards, which is also, I mean, it's the second hardest thing here. You have a total of maybe 8 wave clicks, and then a bunch of free UFO stuff. This, like, one opening, like this wall individually, like the amount of deaths that happen here. Apocalyptic Trilogy just got verified. I say just, you know, months ago. But relatively recently got verified by Poltergeist. I went and checked, like, straight up, it's easier in Apocalyptic Trilogy, a top 50, you know, main list level, than it is in Bloodlust. Like 6 years old. This wave is stupid, basically. It's kind of not as hard as it looks. The hitboxes are a tiny bit more forgiving than what it looks like, but it's pretty much as hard as it looks. And yeah, it's a slow wave, but it's just so stupid, man. It's really silly. If you're having trouble here, which you probably will, I just recommend like specifically practicing this wave. So for example, I did practice Evasium from the start of Evasium, but if you're dying to the wave, I would at some points just go in practice mode and start at the wave and just do this until I felt like I was doing it, you know, 8 out of 10 times, just constantly up in a row doing it. And that's all I have, because it's very feel-based parts. And you can get fairly good at it, so good luck. Now we move on to this ship, which kind of seems like it should be harder on paper. It probably is on paper. It ends up being moderately difficult, but in practice kind of the same consistency as Evasium, because you can just get the clicks and everything about this more ingrained than Evasium, which is just a bit RNG. A lot of it is about feel and kind of focus. As hard as it is, especially in some parts like this, where you can tell, like these are tight gaps. It's been a main list and now an extended list level for years. It's hard stuff, but really, when you're doing stuff like this, especially if you're in normal mode and you're getting a bit antsy, a bit anxious because you don't get here often, maybe you're been playing for a few weeks, this is something in practice mode that you can just do with your muscle memory consistently. So in real attempts, you've just got to keep your cool to try and do what you do in practice here. Stuff like this part, for example, it's really clear and obvious, and you don't even think about flying up to this ledge and then clicking this, or not clicking too early because you can click too early, or not clicking too late and then compromising the angle you come out with. But if you're not really paying attention, you can let these really tiny things, these tiny mistakes happen. So don't. You've just got to lock in for this part and make sure you definitely clear this spike to fall through this gap, and you don't let yourself just crash into this ledge here, which can happen. Small note for this little part here where you fly up as the ship and then you have to enter what does look like a very tight corridor. It's not that strict flying through here. The trickiest thing for me is actually managing the transition, because as a straight fly this isn't that hard, but because you reverse right before you get to it, it's a bit awkward. If you want something consistent to try and replicate, if you keep going up a little bit out of this gap and start letting yourself fall in, that way the fact that your momentum's carrying you down, it gives yourself a moment of respite as the ship reverses and takes a second to fall down to the right angle. And so you can use that to try and make a consistent transition that you can follow. As we move into the rest of the level, moving up to 50, Etza's part, this is where there's some weirdness. This is the most weirdness of the level. This UFO shouldn't be that hard on paper. It's not that hard in practice, but it's surprisingly easy to just accidentally click at a dumb time and crash into something stupid. So again, kind of like the last part. In fact, it really applies to this entire section from about 30 to 50. You've just got to pay attention and do what you're supposed to do, instead of letting your focus slip. The pattern here, I'll mention specifically for this section here. The first part you do 3 clicks, and then when you're on this ledge you do 4 clicks. It's very doable to accidentally click early and hit this saw here. It's also very possible to click too late or not fast enough and end up falling short before you make it to the portal. Generally, if you wait long enough that you don't hit this saw, if you just click the 4 clicks really fast, you'll almost always live. And so what that means is, as long as you make sure you don't die to this saw, if you just do the 4 clicks fast, you're probably not going to die. Whereas the danger is usually that you click too slow. So try and focus on doing these clicks quickly. Make sure this click pattern is pretty brisk. Through the rest of it, it's, so until you get to probably by consensus the worst part of the level. It's just really jank. I don't really get the idea. Even this transition is just balls. It's just so bad. Again, it's a part that looks really hard, and it's quite hard, but not as hard as it looks exactly. Like, there's more space here than you'd think. You can survive this transition a lot, but sometimes you won't. And times when you won't just won't be your fault, really, and that sucks. I will give pretty much every note I have on every input here, though, because of how just irritating the whole thing is. Firstly, you do have to make sure you don't click too late here, but this isn't a tough timing at all. Neither is this timing. The tricky thing comes just after, where the first sends you down, the second sends you back up. You're upside down now, and you've got to click the first 2 pink orbs before you go through this transition where you're the mini ship. Problem is, if you click these pink orbs, even at a neutral timing, so imagine you're falling down, if you click them both in the middle, the way you go through this transition to the ship, ideally you want to come out and be on the ledge, because when you're on the ledge, you slide through this gap. If you don't click at the right time, and the right time is precise, like it's really unintuitive, it's stupid. If you just do normal clicks here, you skip over the ledge and you directly fall into the spike, which is dumb. So instead, you should try and click the orbs a little bit late. So you should wait until you're higher up on the screen to click them. Then you slide through, and you've just got to do a very light tap at some point in the middle here to make it through this gap. It's essentially a micro click. You don't have to aim anything, it's just to make sure you don't fall too short here, which means that this part is essentially a very quick 1-2 pattern where you do one to go through and the second to hit the orb. Then when you change to the ship right side up flying through here, I would always do 3 clicks just to be consistent. This part shouldn't kill you too much, although be aware that, especially if, for example, if you followed my click pattern, by the time you do the 3rd click and you're over here, you can see the corridor flattens out a bit, so don't keep going at the same trajectory. And then you get to the biggest problem, which is the swing copter. I actually had a method for this, which obviously I'm going to share, and it made it, in theory, very consistent, but it's just so stupid that it doesn't like guarantee that you'll live. But if you're only getting through like 1 in 5 times because it's just so RNG, this will make it more consistent. Now the first part, so you come off this pad and you start coming down. So you got to do 2 clicks, one to go up and one to go down. These clicks I just do automatically, I don't think about, because they are very simple clicks and they don't have that much effect. The next 3 clicks, which is all that there is in this part by the way, is literally a 5-click swing copter that's just so stupid that you die all the time anyway. The next 3 clicks are the ones I mapped out with really precise visual cues. And you can kind of figure out when you need to click just by trial and error, but it was coming up with the things that I would look at to try and sort of anchor the exactly when I would try to do the timings that took a long time to figure out. The first click you do right in this sort of line. It's like you want to do it when you're this far along. So as you fall down, you want to click the way I did it, roughly when it looked like I was between these 2 bits of deco in this zone. Then you would fall up and you want to do the next click ideally roughly when you're between this little spinning thing and this little spinning thing. Sort of imagine almost there's a line, maybe a tripwire or something, and as you cross it you want to click. In theory I think you can get away with maybe a bit more horizontally in line with the more right swirly thing, but I found generally it's the most sort of consistent average point is a bit higher up, and that will send you down through these spikes. That second click is probably the hardest one. It's the one that will make or break the part the most. And then the final click, you want to click as you come down when you're right on the edge of this circle, almost as if you're clicking after where this arrow is pointing. You don't want to click on the arrow, you want to click right as you hit the edge, and that will send you through almost perfectly. And it should work very consistently in theory, but again, it's just a stupid part. The rest of Etza's part here is a bit weird sometimes. I found bits of it to be a bit inconsistent, but there's not much you can do about it. If you're good at the ship, you'll probably have no problem here. I'm just bad at doing very free sort of motion ship parts. I prefer doing things with strict click patterns. I did end up coming up with something like a strict click pattern. I would do 6 clicks exactly coming through this portal. The first 3 were kind of to straighten myself out, and then you just have to straight fly the rest, which does make it so that this part is relatively simple. Here I found is more consistent to do specifically 2 clicks. Some combination of 2 clicks was usually right to fly up and then keep myself straight. And the rest of the part's quite easy. You don't have to do much clicking through here. You literally just do 1 click going through each portal, like just after each one to straighten yourself out. And specifically for this click, because I died once or twice and I was not happy with that because of how free this should be, I came up with a very specific sort of marker to use, which is, you see this triangular thing with the stripy bit here. The rightmost part of it, the right half, I tried to click roughly when I was in line with that. So you imagine this little triangle here. You click when you're over, or rather under this triangle, and that should be the right timing to not let yourself die too late and to not click too early. It took me a couple of days to figure out that you can roll off and just click here. I don't think it makes a difference, but whatever, I do that. This wave's a bit tricky. It actually got really quite consistent for me. Worth noting, if you haven't quite figured it out yet, or you're having trouble making this transition consistent, if that's a problem for people, it's designed in such a way that there's kind of a ledge that you can fall down to. This is, at this point, as the wave, you are right side up, big wave. And basically, when I was at this point, I would always do 3 clicks, just to go 1, 2, 3, and make sure after the 3rd one, I didn't fall into the portal. I kind of fell before the portal, where it would carry me in consistently because I was landing in that kind of safe ledge. If you try to do this transition, just spamming directly into the portal, you're going to come out as the ship so random, it's going to be almost impossible. The only real obstacle at the rest of the part is then this one orb. This orb timing is annoying. As the ball, when you come in, you got to do 1 kind of buffer click as you approach, to go up. Then you roll off onto a ledge here, click to come down, and this orb timing is annoying. Really, it's the 1-2 combo of the click on the ledge and then the orb. The orb itself, you don't want to click super early, and the hard thing is just that there isn't a late timing to click because you'll hit the floor. So you only really have an early or neutral timing, and you got to hit not necessarily right in the middle, but sort of at least an early to neutral sort of click. You want to be the ball should have kind of fallen into the orb a decent amount before you click. It's hard to really explain the visual cue, but you want to be at least sort of half overlapping, let's say, with this orb to click. What really helped me get this consistent was to try and be more consistent about the first click. And what I actually did to do that was I would not buffer. If you buffer, it becomes almost impossible to make this orb timing, but you also don't want to be waiting very long at all. There's a very short window you have to click if you don't buffer. So as I was rolling off, I would specifically look at the pixels that come off of the ball from how it rolls on a surface, and the second I could see those pixels come off, that was my cue to click. And so that would mean that I wasn't buffering, but I wasn't waiting too long either, and that would make both clicks easier. And then as a note, especially because of how nerve-wracking this level is, even at this point, if you died to this ship, which should be free, the advice really is to chill out, basically. And the way I really did that was to just realize that, firstly, because it isn't difficult, you don't have to be super precise about the inputs. And so what I would do is, when I was doing it consistently in practice, I was just doing 4 clicks. I was just doing 4 clicks to keep myself roughly straight. And you don't have to do much more than that if you're being calm. 4 control clicks is enough. And so when you get here from 0, try and do a specific number of clicks and just trust that it will be easily enough to take you through the part. We now have the extension. My opinion on the extension is it sucks. It's not that bad, but you know, if you think about how this level works, especially thinking about the Apocalyptic Trilogy that came out, the extension is literally like Aftermath. There is the very ending, like G-Boy, part is technically also like that's where Aftermath starts in the song. This could constitute an entire level on its own, and it's really annoying. To be honest though, it works. The gameplay does work, and the first half of the extension is really where almost all of the difficulty is. TMN is tricky, but it's not technically that difficult. You can get really consistent at it in practice, and I imagine it would be fairly consistent from 0. I never got there, so I can't say for certain. First quick note is that when you click and hold this orb, you can just skip this orb completely, like it doesn't need to exist. This orb is tricky, but I don't really have anything to do about it. This orb was most consistent for me when I didn't think about it, when I was just trying to let my muscle memory take over, so I'd recommend doing that. What may or may not help with that is that it's also actually possible to die to these small robot clicks if you click too short. At some point after many weeks, I actually ended up naturally developing a kind of micro click here that was too short, and so by focusing on this click, it kind of took my mind off of this click, which meant I did it more automatically with my muscle memory, which is what I wanted. So that might help or might not. This wave was surprisingly difficult for me. It shouldn't be, and I imagine it isn't for most people. It did kill me a lot, and so for the first click, what I found was somewhat helpful. You see all of this random deco shit that's lining this edge here, and if you wait until your wave is starting to overlap with them, like down here, then that would usually mean that you can get the click, you can time the click to be low enough. And then the second you do that, you just have to make sure you are paying attention for the next click, and it doesn't take your focus away so you crash too early or too late. And then it's worth noting how this corridor works, because the way you come down through this final corridor greatly affects how the next UFO inputs will go. What you don't want to do is be super high up. If you are as high up as you can be, you cannot live. What happens is you come off this pad, you click this green orb to go flip down and go through. Basically, the higher up you are, which means the further along to the right you are, the further along to the right you'll be when you kind of click this. And basically what that means is that you have to click later to make the gap, because if you click earlier you'll go shorter, so obviously you're upside down, so you'll go closer to the top spike, and if you're further to the right you'll go further down and closer to the bottom spike. And so if you come through here super high up, even if you do as far right on the green orb as possible, as late a timing as possible, you still won't get far enough down to clear this spike. So if you go super high up, you will die. Of course, on the other hand, if you go super low, then clicking late on this orb will actually mean that you go way too far down. So what you don't want to do is go too high, because that will guarantee that you die. If you go lower though, then bear in mind that you should probably click closer to the middle of this orb. And so really it's all about timing this green orb depending on exactly where you come down here. Then you have the rest of the clicks. I don't know exactly how everyone else does them, but for me I did it where you do one click to try and land right in the bottom of this portal, which then flips you, and then do 2 fast clicks up. First note is that because you're trying to get into this portal as low down as you can, it can actually mean that if you do the next clicks to try and go up too quickly, you can clip the portal that changes you from mini to normal size and actually not activate the portal that flips you round yet, so you'll just crash into the floor. So when you do the first click to go in, it's worth having a split second before you do the next 2 clicks. That will just take out the death from hitting the floor. Next, you do these 3 clicks, these 2 clicks, and then you carry on here. 2 things to consider here. If you start this combination of clicks earlier or later, so visually further left or right, it will generally affect how high or low you are coming out to this final portal. And importantly, if you wait too long to start doing these 3 clicks, you might get all 5, but the UFO will tend to come out really low from this portal, so low you don't even make it and survive past the saw. So try and click this on the earlier side. And the second thing is, when you do these clicks, try to do the first 2 clicks very fast together. It should be a very concise 1-2 and then a 1-2-3. If you don't, then you might die within these inputs, I found. Now Zara's part, I think, was almost the hardest part of the level. In the end, I came up with a lot of stuff that made it work quite consistently, but I think this is on paper a really tricky part. First thing is, once you come through to this little straight fly, this orb can impact exactly how you come through. You don't want to click this too late, I think, so if you can, make an effort to make sure this clicks good, but that one should be very automatic anyway. Doing this straight fly, it's just 2 clicks for me. You just do 1 and 2. It doesn't have to be strict, but it's surprisingly easy to die immediately. When you do the first click, you literally want to click as you're in the portal. Like, once you touch the portal, that's when you do the first click. If you wait almost any longer, you can die. And especially if you're nervous from 0, you know how you can just kind of blank out when you're playing in those high pressure moments. Try to focus to make sure that you click right on this portal, because otherwise if you blink, you're dead, because there is no wiggle room. Next, very important that you come through this transition, flying as the ship, high enough into the portal. If you go too low, you won't even touch this orb. And it's way more common, like way more common to die because of the transition by going late. It's like if you die regardless of these orbs just because you did a bad transition, 90% of the time it's being late. So focus a lot on being high enough up. For me, an interesting cue was just trying to fly the ship into the middle of the portal. If you're entering the portal in the middle, you will be at the right height pretty much all the time. And then next you have 3 orb clicks. 1 green to send you down, 1 blue to send you down and up, and then the final one here before a weird little ship pattern where you gotta stay straight, and then you flip and you stay straight. This part is very quick and can be tricky at first, but I found a very consistent way of doing it, which is firstly you can skip the 3rd orb, which means 1 less input you have to do, but crucially it means that the transition is pretty much 100% consistent. It could vary depending on exactly how high or low you enter the transition, but for the most part you will enter this ship the exact same way every time by just doing these first 2 free clicks. Then all you have to do is do 1 small but not that precise click to stay up through here, and then a second, again small but not precise click to keep straight. And that makes this little quick set of inputs really consistent. I would die around this part like 1 in 3 times until I started doing it this way. The rest of the orbs you can die to, but you can also get very comfortable with. Just don't sort of overcook here. This input is then probably the hardest. You have to click in the middle, just a neutral timing, going into the straight fly. I don't have anything in particular to solve this or make this more consistent. There might be ways to do the orbs leading up to it to make it slightly easier. For me, I just found that when I was doing it most consistently, I was hitting these 2 orbs quite quickly, but that can depend person to person. Figure it out for yourself. This part is obviously not how this corridor actually looks, but I don't know how to make it look right. What I did though was obviously the first 2 clicks, just to try and explain what's going on. They're closer together, these ledges. You do 2 clicks to go up, down, you do a click, and then you have a little ship straight fly. And it's the clicks just after, so the 4 ball and then 2 cube clicks that are the most dangerous part of this little segment by far. And so what I would do that was the best for me to do this consistently, maybe they're not the best cues for you, but they work for me. As you come out of the ship, you can buffer the first click as the ball to come up, so you're along this ledge. Obviously they're close together. Then you have to do 3 clicks. Usually you'd have to do 4 clicks, but obviously you're buffering the first one, and the 4 ball clicks would have been up, down, up, down. When you buffer the first one, now you just have to do 3, and I would look at the top spikes. I would look at the top obstacle to go down and then up afterwards and then down. And then after that, you have the 2 cube clicks, which actually aren't that bad, because after you come down into the ball and become the cube, you'll almost always have a small moment you want to wait so you don't click too early. And then it's just a click, and the second click tends to be free. And if you do that, that quick sort of 6 inputs actually becomes quite consistent for me. A lot of it's actually about keeping cool and not just spamming too quickly. And so if you do that, you'll often be okay. I didn't die to this nearly as much as I did to Zara's part just before. And the 2 combined killed me something like 24 times. I think only 3 of those came from here, and I got through a couple times. So I was close to 50-50 here in the corridor. It was mostly Zara that was the problem for me. The rest, you just do a couple more clicks and straight fly out, which is quite straightforward. And now you're really into the last stretch of the level, the last stretch of the extension. For me, well, I didn't make it out of this part. I referred to this to TMN as the sort of second to last part, and I didn't make it out of it out of 2 attempts I got here. But on the whole, in my practices and from the consistency I seem to have, I was quite consistent. A lot of these inputs really aren't too hard. A lot of these timings are straightforward. Here, this click can be a bit awkward because you don't want to click too early, but you're moving so fast, it's a bit hard to wait the tiny precise amount of time. If you try and click when you're perfectly underneath this background deco thing, that tends to be good. You might think that's a bit too late, but then since you're dying like 80% of the time early, if you don't do that, I don't think that's the worst trade-off. I think it's actually quite accurate as a marker. Then you have some relatively simple clicks on these orb timings, and the final one here, where you click the blue orb, if you hold, when you come down here into the wave, you manage to go up and dodge the saws. Usually you'd have to go down and then click up at a specific time, and there are some things you can hit. Instead, you get to just release for free. Shout out Danny for showing me that. At first I thought this is kind of a nothing skip, like it's not really skipping anything. And then I died once in a run from like 30 to here to this click, and I just thought, well, there's no point risking it, because that's really how it is. You'd be surprised the sort of things you can die to when you're nervous in real runs, attempts from 0. So it doesn't hurt you at all to do this little skip. Then you do these clicks. It can be surprisingly easy to die to this, given how hidden this is, but really muscle memory should carry you through here consistently. Click here, hold through, do these little ship bits. And then this wave, particularly this up and down part here, it is what killed me both times I got past the corridor part to here, and I want to say it's the hardest part of this sort of second to last extension section. It's just awkward, and it's a lot of muscle memory for the most part. If you're good at wave, it shouldn't be a problem, but it can be, so don't neglect practice here. Then when you come up as the wave, you can hold, and that will automatically make you click this. So that's a nice little free thing that skips an input. And then you just have to make sure this click is at the right time. For me, it was kind of like clicking when you're right in the middle of these 3 obstacles, or I suppose just above this spike. But it's not too hard to come up with a visual cue based off of these spikes for exactly when you want to click to live, because it's not a free click, but it can be very consistent, so you'll want to figure something like that out, I think. Then the last wave clicks are not that hard, nor are the ship clicks or these orbs. If you're going to die here, it's again because you're panicking and clicking too fast. You want to be controlled. And make sure when you go up and come down, you are reversed, I'm pretty sure here. So when you go down, let go, do 1, 2, you don't spam it too fast. Because if you do come into this transition too low, holding, because if you hold, it will make you jump automatically for you. If you're going too low, then the automatic click actually falls short, and it kind of does something weird and kills you. So again, just be controlled and don't overdo it and go too quick. And the same with these 2 clicks. Make sure they're just very controlled, neutral timings, and when you hold as you enter this transition, just keep straight through here. And then you get to TMN, famously, brought great misery to many people. For me in practice, didn't kill me too much in my runs, didn't kill me too much when I practiced it. You can get this consistent. If you're going to die here, it's really because of nerves, which is what you want. Anything at the end is going to have nerves impact it, but on paper this isn't too bad, so that's good. Make sure to try and do consistent clicks through here. It's a free straight fly, but you'd be surprised how easily you can die at this transition, and I wouldn't be surprised if it would kill people when they're nervous. The rest of the clicks aren't too bad up until about here. This mini wave is the next really awkward thing. What I did was do like an M going up, down in the gaps between the spikes. You can spam through if you want, but for me that kind of M pattern was more consistent. And then this one UFO click, the first UFO click, is probably the hardest click in the whole part for me. It's really easy to go too high, it's really easy to wait too long. The rest of the clicks, as long as you just wait until you hit the next portal, you're good. If you just don't click super quick, like panicking, it's chill, it's easy. And what I came up with that seemed to be relatively good as a solution, actually, because it's hard to have a visual cue. You can't really look at anything, especially because you come in as the wave slightly different each time. So literally what I would do is I would just try and think, as I was doing this click, try to click in the middle. I don't know what the hell the middle is, but the idea, just think about the idea of trying to do this click right in the middle, not early or late, but in the middle, helped me actually do it in the middle. So see if that sort of focusing on that idea helps. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The rest of the clicks are timings that you do. This little straight fly at the end killed me a lot at first, and I got way more consistent at. It's another one that you just don't want to overthink, but you kind of want to have a mix where you don't want to overthink it, but I think it's best not to just be super spammy either. Kind of similar to the last cue I just said. Really, when I got here, what helped me the most at first was just trying to straight fly. Just thinking, go straight through the middle. However many clicks that makes you do. Don't try and do a billion clicks to keep alive, because that will not help you. Just try and go straight through the middle. And for me, that happened to be 3 clicks. If that's 4 for you, if that's 2 for you, whatever it is, just try and focus on being straight, directly parallel through the middle. And then you have the final click. The spikes come up here. This is a triple spike that's claimed many lives. I am confident I wouldn't have died to it. When I come back to this level someday, I won't die to it, because there is a very simple, very easy visual cue. It's obvious, like the second I saw this for the first time and I practiced it for the first time, it was really obvious to me, like, I'm just going to figure out a thing to look at. And what you do is you click, you see this sort of pair of spikes. As the cube rolls over it, right as it is lined up, sort of in the middle, you click and you will live. It's that simple. You even have a little bit of leeway because it's just a triple spike. It's not like it's an ultra precise click. It's a cool level. It's got ups and downs. It's 3 minutes long, and you need a lot of endurance and patience and willpower to do it. That is, for me, the biggest barrier to entry for Bloodlust. To be honest, I think it's actually doable for loads of, Bloodlust might seem like a level that's like almost impossible, or like this is a serious level. Like EVW can do Yatta. Yeah, Yatta's a hard level, but not hard like Bloodlust. To be honest, I think Bloodlust is even within the sort of most people maybe could do this range. Like this, you don't need to be special to be able to do Bloodlust. You need a lot of skill, not too much though. You need more endurance, and you need to be able to stick with it long enough. Clearly, I didn't have that endurance, but I got a lot out of it, so I'm thankful. And yeah, good luck.